You see, this love thing is huge when it comes to fear. It's huge. It's everything. If I had a biblical text to attach to my sermon today, it would probably out of the Epistle of John. Perfect love casts out fear. Perfect love casts out fear. That's the other side of fear. It's love. That's the antithesis and the antidote. It's love. And I'm not going to say a lot about that today because we have a guest preacher next week, and that's our own Charlie Shook. And that's what he's going to talk to us about, I think. Everything I know about love in 30 minutes or less. Which tells me he doesn't know a lot about love, or that he's a master communicator who can condense and consolidate all of this wisdom in 30 minutes. And that's what he is. But the love thing is just huge. Perfect love casts out fear. Now, many people think that courage is the answer for fear. Let me tell you something about courage. It's one of the highest virtues, courage. It's a wonderful thing. It's one of the pinnacles of the human spirit. I happened to see a movie a few weeks ago. It was so inspiring. It was a story of courage. It was called The Hurt Locker. Anybody seen that movie? The Hurt Locker. It's a story, almost a documentary, but it's not. But it's almost a documentary. The story of a team of soldiers in Iraq whose job it is to disarm IEDs, improvised explosive devices. These are incredibly brave men and women over there. They're incredibly brave. It's amazing. I don't think I could do it. But even the most courageous can suffer from rage, from resentment, from anxiety and isolation. But see, love goes deeper. Love goes deeper, even than courage. Love embraces all things and all fears and somehow transforms them. And last week I said guilt and grace can't occupy the same space. Well, love and fear can't occupy the same space. Unlike fear, love connects us to others. Love breaks down our isolation. It lifts us from the narrowness of our spirits and the narrowness of our thinking. Love calls forth creativity and compassion and even courage. Love opens itself up. And so love itself, in that sense, is dangerous because it makes itself vulnerable. And becoming vulnerable can be a dangerous thing, as you know. Let me offer a quote from someone you don't hear much about, Richard Nixon. And it's not, "I am not a crook." That's how we remember from Richard Nixon. "I am not a crook." He said a lot of other things, and some were quite profound and some were quite eloquent, believe it or not. You may have heard this one. People react to fear and not love. They don't teach you that in Sunday school, but it's true. That was Richard Nixon. And then he went on to put fear in a kind of interesting juxtaposition to love. He said, we're afraid that saying yes will mean losing the power ever after to say no. We're afraid that if another is shown to be fit and good, we must be bad and wrong. We're afraid that if we make another feel good, we'll be hurt. We're afraid that if we praise another, we'll feel ridiculous. We're afraid that if we show our needs, we'll be considered weak. We're afraid that if we join our lives with another, that we'll be abandoned. I might even vote for a guy who said that. I like that. But perfect love casts out fear. It is the business of the future to be dangerous, but we can choose to confront our fear with courage and with love. And on a closing note, I'll say, without sounding trite, because as people of faith, God's presence rests with us. Wherever we go, in all the seasons of our lives, whither shall I go to flee from thy spirit? And I know some people will say, oh, it's just a crutch. It's just a crutch. But I think we know instinctively when we experience that divine presence, there's a sense of inner peace and assurance that comes. I can't really explain it. I can reflect on my own childhood. And I remember when I was first learning to ride a bike, I especially remember when I was learning to swim. And my dad usually, sometimes my mom would get into the pool with me. And there was this sense of fright that washed over me when I got into that pool. I still remember that. But I did it. And you know how I did it? My dad would say, "It's okay, Ken. I'm right here with you." Maybe you experience that in your own marriage. Someone you love deeply and you're going through a very, very difficult time. And when your partner says, "It's okay. I'm right here with you." And you know that whatever happens, they're not going anywhere. Now multiply that by 1,000,000,000 times. The divine presence and the divine spirit has the power to cast out fear, to set us free, and to make us whole.